Senator John McCain today staked his presidential bid on the success of the war in Iraq, then immediately flip-flopped. Absolutes, a problem for the senator. And our third story in the countdown regarding the New York Times report that McCain had done favors for clients of the Washington lobbyist Vicky Eisman. McCain's blanket denial beset by moths. First, there was the McCain deposition contradicting the McCain's campaign denial that he talked to anyone from Paxson Communications in 1999. Now McCain is also contradicted by Lowell Bud Paxson, the TV mogul himself, who says he personally met with the senator and that Ms. Eisman was probably there too. The Iraq hubris first. Asked what happens if he cannot convince the American public that the Iraq war is succeeding, Senator McCain said today, quoting, "Then I lose. I lose." The Washington Post noting that 6 seconds later came a revision, quote, "Let me not put that stark. Americans will judge my candidacy on how, first and foremost, on how they believe I can lead the country both from our economy and for national security. And later, if I may, I'd like to retract, I'll lose." As for the bugs in the lobbyist blanket, Mr. Paxson has now joined Senator McCain himself in contradicting the McCain campaign claim that the senator had not met with Paxson prior to sending letters to the FCC on his behalf. Paxson recalls a 1999 meeting in McCain's Washington office, and he remembers telling McCain, quote, "You're the head of the Commerce Committee. The FCC is not doing its job. I would love for you to write a letter." As for Paxson's lobbyist at that time, Ms. Eisman, again quoting Mr. Paxson, "Was Vicky there? Probably. The woman was a professional. She was good. She could get us meetings." And in part 3 of the contradictions, 3 letters to the FCC have surfaced on behalf of another Eisman client in which McCain threatened to restructure the FCC. To help us wade through all this and more, let's turn now to MSNBC correspondent David Shuster in Washington. David, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
First to the comments McCain made on Iraq on the back of the Straight Talk Express, no less, when he said them. He kept trying to clarify this "then I lose" remark. He went on to say, let me read it exactly, "But I don't think there's any doubt that how they judge Iraq will have a direct relation to their judgment on me, my support of the surge. Clearly, I am tied to it to a large degree," end quote. What happened there?
Well, Keith, regardless of what one thinks about these other McCain statements on this other sort of issue, on that particular statement, McCain was right on the mark. I mean, the senator and his staff acknowledged that in the November election, McCain's chances are going to depend on the public views of whether the Iraq war has been a success and whether the public agrees with McCain or not. At the moment, the public is not on McCain's side in the war in Iraq, and that is not the sort of thing, therefore, that's going to help McCain at a time when he's trying to fundraise. He's trying to fundraise, bring in money, build up an organization. And Iraq is not the issue that's going to help him do it. What he's trying to do is he wants the fundraisers to think about the McCain pledges to cut taxes, the pledges to cut wasteful government spending, the promises to secure the southern border. Now, sure, a large number of Republicans agree with McCain in Iraq, but at this point, to the extent that Iraq excludes McCain's ability to focus people on these other issues, that is a big problem, as McCain acknowledged when he realized he needed to broaden out his answer a bit.
On lobbying and Paxson Communications, the McCain campaign put out the blanket denial at first, which has now been contradicted by McCain, by the other key person involved, Mr. Paxson. Is there a point at which a careless defense might start to look like outright deceit?
Yeah, the point at which the McCain staffers are more concerned about rushing out a denial than actually talking to Senator McCain and finding out what actually happened. I mean, this is the third bite at the apple on this for the McCain campaign. First it was, there were no meetings with Paxson. Then it was, well, okay, maybe there was a meeting with Paxson's staff. And now it's, well, maybe it really was with Paxson himself. And again, part of the problem revolves around the rush to tamp down every aspect of the initial New York Times story. And the irony in all of this, Keith, is that McCain's lawyer, Bob Bennett, is absolutely right on this. Whether John McCain met directly with Paxson or not, in terms of the lobbying and the letter writing, that issue about the direct meeting is immaterial. But it becomes very material to the larger issue at play right now, and that is McCain's credibility and whether or not his word is considered truthful or not.
Last point, we haven't touched on this yet, facing the McCain camp tonight. The DNC, Democratic National Committee, filed a complaint with the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, over the public financing during the primary season. Can you explain that?
Yeah, a couple of weeks before the New Hampshire primary, McCain had already received $3 million in loans from a Maryland bank. He wanted another $1 million, and the bank essentially said to him, look, we need some collateral beyond your campaign's assets. So what McCain did is he pledged government public financing certifications as collateral. Essentially, McCain promised that if his campaign faltered, he would keep going and enter the public financing system so he could pay back the bank. The president of the Bethesda-based Fidelity entrusted that the loan agreements were carefully scrutinized to pass muster with regulators and Federal Election Commission. McCain's lawyer says that the loan was worked out very carefully. However, independent analysts, Keith, say that this area of bank law is uncharted, and at the very least, that McCain got an unusual sweetheart deal.
MSNBC's David Shuster looking at the travails of the McCain campaign today. Thank you, David.
Thanks, Keith.